My name is Kycell, and here in Chapter 23, I finally return to the events in the life of the forgotten Minotaur King, Krunturg. I sat in the Mendes library, thoroughly engrossed in the journal of Prince Judeniston. So engrossed, the impending torture and likely death of my friend Myrink had escaped my mind for the time being. For context, I started a few chapters prior to the confrontation between the Prince, Krunturg the Minotaur King, my new acquaintance Kind, when he was still a child squire and not yet mayor, and the treacherous, black-furred and crimson-tattooed Minotaur known as the Man Reaper. I learned that the Rakshasi princess that was humbly brought to Krunturg for betrothal, Darlessa, was originally intended to be wed to former king Birk Mendes. This was an effort to join their adjacent lands in a rock-solid royal and political union, the Rakshasi port city to the northwest, and the Mendes kingdom of Goldenirod. After Mendes' assassination at the hands of Krunturg, the Rakshasi pocketed their plans for the union. They had decided to observe this usurper's rule for the time being, all the while infiltrating his royal entourage with spies and sycophants to their rule. This was how they came into contact with the Man Reaper, Krunturg's head of security and lead general in any proposed military forces. It was noted he received this position only after Kind's father, Fam, turned down the position to spend more time with his family. The Man Reaper publicly and aggressively would spout his opinion that Krunturg was too kind to the human citizens of Goldenirod. He also espoused that Krunturg wasn't truly putting the well-being of the Minotaur citizenry above that of the non-Minotaur peasants infesting their new kingdom. That was when the Rakshasi prince, Judeniston, first came to the Man Reaper, agreeing with him in all aspects over their distaste for the humans. He then let the idea enter the Reaper that if he were to build a possible coup against Krunturg, the Rakshasi would gladly aid in his rise to the throne. Judeniston, nor his superiors in the family hierarchy, had any intention of helping a brute like the Man Reaper. They simply intended for the two cow beasts, as he referred to them in his journal, would fight one another to the death, then make a puppet ruler of whichever one survives. While Judeniston manipulated the Man Reaper, his older brother, Ledenifer, orchestrated the marriage proposal between Darlessa and Krunturg, as well as letting rumors of a genie lamp in Goldenirod entice the local crime syndicate of Ragazi Rosbo frogmen to assault the town en masse. Darlessa was meant to prove her skill in battle to Krunturg and clean up a few froggy cutthroats from their future lands. But her embarrassing performance in the battlefield caused that particular scheme to falter. This also put another hitch in the Rakshasi's overall plans, as during the conflict with Krunturg and the Man Reaper, she was meant to aid whichever one was coming out on top during the fight and help deliver the final blow. Due to her failure, Krunturg returned and brought his squire and my good friend, Kind, who at this very moment was once again fighting for his life due to the evil actions of the Rakshasi. The moment the two left for the Mindus castle, Darlessa and her humble servant, the orange tiger Rakshasi who escorted her, began to enact a new plan, which required the summoning of their older brother, Ledenifer, to her side. But that was another tale. Jadeniston received word via magic message of some kind in moments, and while Krunturg and Kind were left to possibly be killed by the Rosbow in the town, he went to further prepare the Man Reaper, as their plans were coming undone. This, in his journal, was where he detailed Krunturg's unintended teleportation to their meeting space, and his own eventual death. The sensation of warmth and speeding down a slide overwhelmed young Kind and King Krunturg, but in what felt like a few seconds, the two were forcefully ejected onto cold, slate-like flooring. When looking up, before them indeed was the dark-furred and red-tattooed Man Reaper, but standing just to his left, and looming over the three Minotaurs, was a burly, white-furred tiger Rakshasi. Quickly getting to his feet and raising his angry craghammer, Krunturg demanded the Man Reaper explain what was going on. Little Kind quickly followed, both sword and smaller warhammer at the ready. The Rakshasa, Jadeniston, bristled with anger, the hackles of his fur raised as if filled with electricity. Bizarrely enough, Krunturg could have sworn this tiger man's eyes also sparked as they squinted in frustration.
You fool of a cow, Man Reaper. You didn't magically secure this hovel you call a home. Quickly dispose of this usurper and his calfling. I don't have time for this.
The Man Reaper quickly scuttled to what looked like a rack on the wall to his right, which carried the hefty and rusty scythe Krunturg had seen him use all that time ago during his fight with Fam.
I'm gonna enjoy killing you, Krunturg. I should have been the one to lead our people. You're just a lazy fool. And you, little bull, I'll kill you and bring your head to your father. I'll never live down being under his shadow. That is, at least until I kill him too.
Running at the two of them at once, the Reaper swung the scythe at Krunturg's waist and Kind's head. Stopping it with merely the hilt of his craghammer, Krunturg wrenched the Reaper forward and locked horns with the traitor. Seeing the opportunity, Kind steadied his footing and went to deliver a fatal blow to the Reaper's heart with his sword, but found himself suddenly being choke-slammed by a powerful, long-clawed and paw-like hand into the hard floor of the cabin. The white tiger Rakshasi then once again grabbed the flailing child around the throat and lifted him into the air, his hooves kicking uselessly as the Rakshasi brought Kind close to his grinning and fanged maw.
I'm sorry you had to see any of this, but you really should have stayed home today and allowed my sister Darlessa to come. Now your short life ends. But be grateful. At least it's at the glorious hands of Prince Jadeniston.
Before Jadeniston could choke Kind to death, or else rip out Kind's throat with his enormous and vicious fangs, the cord-blessed sword the Minotaur youth wielded came piercing through both forearms of the prince. With a pained roar, Jadeniston released Kind, who landed sturdily on his hooves. He raised his one-handed hammer and smashed it into the princely leg of the monstrous tiger. Krunturg, meanwhile, had managed to hold the Reaper at bay long enough to bring his craghammer into his foe's chin, releasing them from their hornlock, and resulting in both of the Reaper's innerly curved horns to break and clatter to the floor. Bloody and dazed, the Reaper reeled back and fell to the floor, clutching his bloody brow stumps, which moments ago housed his formerly impressive horns. Krunturg raised the hammer to deliver the killing blow, just as Prince Jediniston managed to toss Kind directly into Krunturg's side. This wasn't enough to destabilize a warrior as steadfast as Krunturg, but what followed was. With both feet planted, Jediniston inhaled a great breath which seemed to suck all of the noise from the room. Then, channeling all the power he could muster, he released a blue and white beam of electricity that launched Krunturg bodily from the center of the room and through an adjacent wall. Never one to stay down for long, the Reaper took this opportunity to rearm himself with his scythe. As much as he wanted revenge for his mutilation by Krunturg, he would leave Krunturg to the prince. Kind would be his. The excitement I felt at reading this battle was exhilarating. I was preparing to read the next passage when I heard a rapid knock on the library door. Startled, I leapt to my feet and began absent-mindedly to head for the sound. I passed a haggard Chinook aggressively searching for something he was certain was on the floor of our bookroom. Later, it would be obvious to me he was searching for the journal I was just reading, and was told to return to him at once. When I opened the chamber door, I was greeted by an orc guard I didn't recognize. She just wordlessly pointed towards the dungeon, and it all dawned on me once again. My impending dread was finally made manifest. They had finished with my rink and were ready to start on me. Carnager hadn't returned, so that meant it was all the worse. I reflected on my entire journey thus far, all the narrow escapes from death that I had survived. The idea of finally finding myself in this inescapable situation was too much to bear. My knees almost went from under me. If they had, I was certain I wouldn't have been able to make it back up again. Resolutely, I squeezed my way past the orc. I hadn't realized how dark it had become outside while I read. I must have gone slower than usual. Would this be my final view of the outside world? But then I realized there would be my execution day after this, assuming I'd be allowed, or even able to see the sky one last time. I walked through the courtyard and through the doors of Tower Q, then descended into the dungeon. As I entered the dark, dank row of cells in the dungeon, I could see a large gathering of familiar and terrifying faces. Fugazi, chief among them, of course, as I expected. But Lady Silva was present, with her catty face and enormous bow. Lord Carnager with his long, eerie hands steepled at his mouth in concentration. Even the orc guard that had hounded me since the start of my journey was present. I think his name was Chomsky. I was slightly surprised. Prince Dinge, in all his gargantuan, toady glory, nor the young Princess Walla were in attendance, but I was also relieved for some reason. I walked forward, knowing trying to sneak past them was a fool's errand. They seemed huddled around another figure in a seated position. I thought the pit of my stomach couldn't drop any lower at this point. If it was Myrink, I don't think I would be able to stand the sight of her beaten and likely dead. However, the figure was alive and writhed in their seat. That was when Lord Carnager looked up and gestured for me to come closer. Hypnotically, I obeyed. As I rounded the corner, the white fur and mouse-like ears of their prisoner all but confirmed my suspicion that it must have been Myrink. But as I got closer, a thought crept into my mind. Had Myrink always been so masculine, portly, and draped in heavy jewels and robes? As I unconsciously leaned in further for examination, I heard a throat-clearing noise from behind me. I looked up to see a gray-furred, rabbit-eared female guard bearing one milky eye and with two ornate pistols holstered at her side. She was standing adjacent to Fugazi and far from the prisoner tied to the chair. Lord Carnager spoke to me in particular.
"Oh, glad you came, myself. I have your night's payment. I sent that old guard to retrieve you and Chinook, so I could give you your daily wages."
Handing me another bloated sack of coins and patting me on the head dismissively. If the rest of the group hadn't been focused on this prisoner, they would have seen my jaw fully fallen on the floor. Just then, the disguised Myrink moved past Fugazi and Carnager both.
"Oh, mon Dieu, Fugazi, may I escort this librarian to the front of the castle?"
Barely turning his head to look, Fugazi gave her a dismissive handwave as Myrink swiftly and literally dragged my stone-still body from the chamber.
Hi, my name is Matthew Lewis, and I do the voice of Kycell Bakshi along with all the additional voices in The Forgotten Minotaur King. I hope you enjoy the podcast and continue to listen into the future. If you want to support my content, please donate to my Patreon, Matthew Lewis Podcasts. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Matthew Lewis Podcasts, all one word. Follow me on Twitter at Matthew Lewis P. Or leave a positive maximum star review on your podcast app of choice. If you found this podcast, I assume you're familiar enough with the genre to know how important reviews are to the survival of a channel. And I hope you recommend this to your friends. Or if you didn't like it, you could recommend it to your enemies, and I'll teach them a lesson. Keep it sleazy, folks, and thank you.